Hello, all. Welcome to another episode of SaaS SI Partnership Podcast Series. I'm Shankar from Coot, and I will be your host for today's episode. Today, we are honored to have Rostow Ravanan, a renowned leader in the global IT services industry. Rostow co founded Mindtree, a trailblazing global system integrator, and as a CEO, he led the company through a period of remarkable growth and transformation. Now, Rostow has transformed from the other side of the table. He founded a company in the cybersecurity space, and he brings now a unique experience of blending of both sides of SI experience as well as a startup, which is also working with the SIs. So, in this episode, we will dive deep into his journey, explore the pivotal role SaaS partnerships during the Mindtree days, and also understand the valuable insight from him, what the SaaS founders are looking for, how can they scale through SI collaborations. Hi, hi, Rasto. Welcome to our new podcast series on SaaS System Integrator Partnership. Right. Thanks a lot for your time. Before we are diving into the questions, could you just introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, thank you. So happy to be here and get this chance to share my thoughts with your audience. My name is Rostow. Been in the tech industry for a little more than 30 years. The largest time was with an IT services company called Mindtree, where I had the fortune to be a co-founder, and then left that organization in 2019. And since then, currently another venture where I'm an entrepreneur, a company called Alpha High, where we built a product for cybersecurity and now taking it to market.
Oh, great, Rasto. My first question is probably we are going back time. Right. You started Mindtree along with other famous entrepreneurs, right? And Mindtree was one of the youngest blogs, right, at that time, and you are taking on with the largest behemoths like a TCS, Infosys, and all there. So, what were you doing differently to take care? And in that whole journey, is there any any product partnership was playing any role there, Rasto?
Um, Many things helped us when we started Mindtree. Part of it was, I would say, like you rightly pointed out, we had very experienced leadership team when we started Mindtree. So they had a lot of experience in terms of how to build a business, especially in the IT services world. It's function of not just customer acquisition, but it's also successful delivery, good people practices, ethics and integrity, values. Many things go into building success in the services business there. And we had a leadership team which was very experienced and had done this in the past. So we started off, I would say, from a sort of sports parlance, we hit the ground running because of all that past experience. And on all of these parameters, for example, over time, we had so many relationships with large enterprises based on our past experience. So immediately we were able to reach out to them. A few people trusted us and gave us a little bit of work. So all of that helped there. But many factors external too. When Mindtree was born in 1999, it was the e-commerce boom, and therefore the entire company's positioning was e-business. So we picked the dominant theme of that time and then rode that wave till the time the internet bust happened, and slowly over time expanded into other offerings there. So we took advantage of market tailwinds as well. But whatever we have done, whatever we strategy or whatever execution that we did, etc., was, I would say, still only a small component. There was a lot of good fortune, a lot of good wishes from and a lot of trust from some of our earliest clients who gave us very large opportunities, even though we were a very small company there. I still remember our first, I would say, probably large customer who trusted us was Volvo. We were very small. It was a globally competitive tender, but we just got dressed, showed up for the fight, and things that we were able to promise the customer, gave the customer confidence, and the customer trusted us and selected us, like I said, even though it was a globally competitive tender. So a lot of goodwill, a lot of support, a lot of confidence from customers. So things that we did, but a large part also came from external factors that made Mindtree successful.
Okay. So the question was like also on the any
Product partnership.
any product partnership was helping, because you also mentioned about e-commerce, and even most of the partnership also seasonal, right? I think you mentioned 19 and this one, and then the ERP implementation was seasonal sometime. Now it is cloud transformation, or very recently now the AI is there. So as a CEO, or you are also CEO at some point, or even when you are also with the CEO as a CFO, how did you look into these partnership? Any stories, anecdotes there, Rostow?
Correct. So I think the most natural selection was the large technology companies like SAP, like Salesforce, like Microsoft, there, because they gave us two very quick advantages. One is many of these large companies have very elaborate training kind of programs for IT services companies because they know that they can sell the software to an enterprise, but the enterprise needs customization, needs deployment, needs consulting. So they had some of these large technology companies, like I said, Microsoft, SAP, Salesforce, etc., have very deep partnership ecosystems where they spend a lot of effort to helping get trained. And that is valuable because you need to understand the technology really well before you can convince a customer to give you work in that area. Secondly, those guys are in a way market makers. So the sale is primarily sort of front-ended by them. And then you walk in on their coattails and say, now that you bought whatever software that you spoke about, can you choose us to do the implementation for you, etc. There. So it becomes like a door opener. It becomes like a little bit of a, you're getting the benefit of all the work that they did. Over time, you realize that for you to get all your growth ambitions, you need to broaden that. So you started moving away from just the pure large tech companies, like I said, there, to a whole bunch of emerging technology companies, like say, for example, Databricks or Splunk, etc., which in the late 2000s was beginning to sort of take off there. And again, the recipe was similar. Pick some of these companies that have a really interesting offering, get your people trained on it, get all the certification, the badges, etc. But there you probably had a little bit of a role in shaping that proposal, shaping that opportunity along with the technology company, and then going to the customer with that solution there. So you're not only dependent on the tech company to give you leads, to give you the business. So you also played a little bit of a role there. But as you become a little bit more larger, you become more strategic to the customer, you're involved in much more larger programs, etc., is the third phase when the customer starts looking to you for bringing them ideas for innovation. So in the first two phases, you are implementing decisions that they have already taken. So they have decided to go for a whatever e-commerce program, and then you're building a tech stack for it. There, for example, you have a choice of this database or that database, and then if you think that Cloudera versus Databricks, whatever, you do the evaluation, and then you partner with them, and then you go to that thing there. So it's a I would say majority customer ownership with a technology company, joint technology ownership with the customer technology company, and the third is where you are the primary driver. Because you reached a certain stage, you reached a certain maturity, you reached a certain relationships with some of your large customers, and they expect to do higher value-added things from you like innovation. And then you go back and say, okay, dear Mr. Bank, you can do your payment processing differently by using this interesting technology of this startup there. Or dear Mr. Retail Company, you have these three problems. Allow me to conduct a hackathon because I am connected to the Indian ecosystem. I'm connected to platforms like NASCOM. I'm connected to so many startups here. I'm connected to so many incubators, accelerators, etc. So I will run a hackathon for you. Maybe 25 startups participate in it. We'll pick the three best startups that have the closest match to your requirements there. But then after you run that hackathon, after you get these startups to compete, they produce their solution, then you choose the startup that is most closely aligned with this problem statement there. But then you also nurture and handhold that startup, because the startup, for example, may have never done a contract with a large company. They don't know how to get empaneled as a vendor. They don't know, for example, how billing will work, how payment will work, and all of that there. They may also not have access to the customer infrastructure, the customer's data, etc., all of which the services company will have because they've been partnering with that company for 5 years or 10 years, and they have built a $50 million business or whatever there. So then you allow them to, what shall I say, piggyback on us, and then therefore be able to solve the problem there. But in doing this, there's a win-win for all three sides. The customer gets a problem solved in a very unique and an innovative way. The startup benefits because they have the logo, they have cash flow, they have revenue, they have validation, which obviously will benefit them in their journey. But for the service company, the system integrator as well, you are now beginning to be seen more seriously by the customer. Your image is going up, etc. It may or may not be a big financial benefit for you, but the perception of you in the customer's eye changes there. So tomorrow it could be a classic whatever testing or an infrastructure management opportunity, but the customer sees you with a different view and therefore gives you a slightly higher weightage, and therefore you get to sort of deepen your relationship with the customer, be seen as a more strategic vendor, etc. You can also use it for risk management. If you develop this kind of a perception with the client, then tomorrow there's a vendor consolidation and some vendors getting knocked out, you will be on the right side instead of getting sort of squeezed out there. So all the sort of links in this chain when you sort of craft this properly.
Oh, great, great. Thanks for the detailed answer, Rostow. So if I sum it up, one, you are partnering with the large companies like AWS, Microsoft consistently, either for your own brand extension, as well as even get leads or even working with them. But you will also partner with the smaller size of
Yeah, I'm just saying that. Yeah, you're right. So you at the starting point, you partner with large companies because your brand is obviously not that strong. In the second phase, you partner with the emerging technology companies because they probably will also be enough of a momentum behind them, etc. There, and then you partner with smaller companies.
When there is a innovative quotient is pretty.
Exactly.
Because one of the problem, I would say, the apprehensions or the fears in the minds of founders is like Mindtree is too big. They have resources, they have a client in their back, and I know they also have a team because they write code, right? They may try with me for a few clients, and if it works well, right, then they will know what is stopping them in copying my idea or to replicate my product, right? So, how does it really work internally, Rostow? How do you really look at it?
So the IT services industry in India is at least whatever 50 years or so old, right? So all kinds of things have happened. Definitely, in a few cases, people have tried this, and the system integrator would have said, "Okay, this makes sense for me to build on my own," and so they have tried that as well there. But in many cases today, I think there's a recognition amongst at least the well-established, reputed kind of companies that you can't do everything for the customer. If you want to build a product, for example, the technology aspect of building the product may be a certain level of complexity, but then running it as a product, continuous sort of, what shall I say, marketing and product enhancements and features and mapping competition and all of that there is also a different ball game, right? And a services company typically is not geared for that. The
Okay.
second issue for the systems integrators is that many of them, for example, if you're large, well established, etc., you are likely to be listed. And the public markets don't like seasonal volatility in your earnings, which is inevitable in a product company, right? In a product company, for example, this quarter you are lucky, you close 3 deals, you'll have good revenue. Next quarter, whatever end of the year, December quarter, customers don't say anything, you'll have a lower revenue. January again it will go up, etc. There. So operationally, for example, it's not like a easy fit for the services company to also try and build products there. Bottom line, therefore, is if you look at some of the large, well-established companies which are like 25, 50, whatever years old, their products are very, very small part of their overall revenue. The organization momentum, the rhythm, the go-to-market sort of steps, the branding and everything else is for services. So again, like I said, therefore, the conclusion that I have is, especially when you are a small company and you are evaluating partnership with the large SIs, pick companies which have a right chemistry match, which have the same passion, same urgency, same, what shall I say, ethos as what you have. And then also, at the end of the day, you like people, you trust people, etc. Ensure that you have sufficiently, strong contracts to protect your interests as well there. A good services company will not mind, appropriately rewarding and appropriately also protecting the services company between they'll be fair in their dealings with the product company, even if it's a startup. Today, you also have lots of examples of well-run partnerships amongst the large global SIs as well. But a lot depends on choosing the right company, if you're working with the right people within that company, but also protecting yourself through good contracts.
Got it, Rasha. But as a CEO, when you are you're CEO or you also closely work with the founder CEOs, right? How important the partnership in the in the mind space? Does it really happen in the in the boardroom? Does it really discussion happen?
Absolutely. Today, I think it's a key strategy sort of pillar for almost all the large SIs. Because like I said, from a technology point of view, market access point of view, and so on and so forth, there. So I think the large SIs take partnerships very, very seriously. They will usually have a dedicated person either within their marketing team or overall in the leadership team sort of to manage partnerships there. So if you were to again just take the example of the large companies, because it's a little bit more easier to relate to, if you go to say Sapphire by SAP or go to Dreamforce by Salesforce, and you see how many services companies come there, take stalls and partner with their customers to use this technology and so on and so forth. So there is definitely, like I said, a big focus on partnerships amongst all the large systems integrators to partner with technology companies of all sizes and shapes. I mean, I gave the example of SAP and Salesforce because they're very, very well-known brand names. But all the way to even emerging companies, there's a lot of focus on partnerships there. Many large SIs, again, as an example, Wipro also has a sort of like a corporate VC arm, right? So it's another way of, what shall I say, showing commitment to developing the ecosystem. So in addition to giving you customer access, in addition to giving you all the other things I spoke about to the last question, Wipro also takes an equity stake in the company to sort of support the company. If, like I said, there's a match from all sides, they like the technology, they see a fit with their customers, etc. Many of these large companies also have a way by which they participate financially also in these startups. So like I said, so one way or the other, in today's day and age, good SIs realize that they can't do everything on their own. So partnerships are a very important pillar of strategy.
Got it. Got it. Any specific experience which you could relate to Mindtree when you are there? Apart from the large guys, I think we all know. Any interesting partnership you have done where it helped growing Mindtree, as well as because of the Mindtree, there are any good companies really grown? Anything like that we can share, Rostow?
Since I left Mindtree in 2019, so I don't have anything. One is obviously my memory is also like quite leaky, so I don't remember. I don't have specific names, etc., to give you there. But I'll tell you the principle. I think if you are a early stage company, if you're a SaaS company or a product company, and you want to partner with large SIs like Mindtree or anybody else, I think it's important to first start with a little bit of a grounds up approach, because what ends up happening in these large companies is that the senior management, the CEO, marketing team, partnership team, etc., all have good intentions, but the needle doesn't move at that level. The needle moves at the ground level there. Even if I were to give a more what shall I say, real life example, today in my startup Alpha Hive, we reached out to a lot of the large SIs and we sort of had lots of dialogues with them, but we got one entry tactically, which is at least giving us a few tens of thousands of pounds every year as billing, is one account manager who was dealing with one problem statement for his client, then realized that what we had is like a big benefit to them. So they, for example, they may have quoted say out of £1,000 to win that project, and they obviously have all their cost structure to deliver that project there, and then they realize that the solution that we have can introduce like significant automation for them, and they can deliver the project for a much higher margin compared to what they would have to do this if they had to do this manually there. So then the guy really got that what shall I say, eureka moment, and then signed up with us, and now they also realize that they can offer additional services that they originally didn't have, because you can't keep throwing people at every problem, right? So because now they have a platform, this platform also has this additional capability. So they went and told the customer that, okay, in addition to what I was doing with you in the past, I can do this also for you. So the customer, like I said, gives them the second offering to also work with, and so on and so forth. So they get a little bit of a ability to grow their wallet share in the customer. But the entry point is all, I think it's better to go grounds up, identify one account you want to go after, using whatever all the tools at your disposal, find the correct relationship person for that account, for that customer from this SI, and then work with them, establish your credentials, show them all the value that you can bring, etc. Then what we are seeing is now, for example, if that practice has a strategy meet, we are also called to come and present to them. So the one account manager is introduced us to another account manager. So you sort of horizontally permeate to other accounts there. Then if you you reach a certain level of critical mass, you get 5 customers or 10 customers or whatever, then procurement takes you seriously. Then you get like an empaneled partner kind of a status. And then you become a little bit more larger, a little bit more, what shall I say, integrated into their ecosystem. Then the senior management also wants to work with you, maybe introduce you to larger deals, etc., etc. So in our experience, we found that dealing ground up is a lot more valuable than dealing top down, because you also have to look at it from the startup entrepreneur side. The most difficult commodity for you is your time. Because you have a limited amount of time with which you have to build your product, go to market, seek funding, manage your talent. You're obviously juggling some 10 different hats, and typically you're also resource constrained, right? If you have work for 10 people, you can possibly afford to have only 8. So the 8 people are doing 10 people's worth of work. So you're resource constrained in many different ways, but most seriously from the sort of CEO's time point of view. Therefore, this option also gives you a little bit more, I would say, visibility and tangibility. So that's our experience of dealing with SIs, and especially if you're a young company and you want to set up a partnership with SIs, that's the recipe that I would take.
Okay. So is there anything you can say, like, if you have, I think I'm not trying to put the whole thing in one caveat, right? But is there any thumb rule we can say, if you have, for example, if you have enterprise clients, and or if you are solving a very critical problem which is not there, and what are the conditions you would say that then you are probably your SI partner ready? Right. Again, I'm suddenly shooting a question, but trying to get your perspective of, because you saw from both sides, right? As an essay itself, you have seen it, but from this side also now you are trying to. So, what could be the benchmark which they can look up to? Hey, okay, if I'm at this stage now, so I am at least can do it.
Correct. So the SI typically sells to large enterprises, right? So they won't deal with a small. If you were, I'm just take an example. If you are TCS or Accenture, kind of very large SI, you probably won't deal with anybody less than at least say $10 billion in revenue or something like that, because there's no sort of economics for you for a large SI to deal with small companies there. So, but where I'm coming from is that those enterprises that these SIs deal with also have their own complications. Their vendor empowerment process, their procurement process, etc., will be very cumbersome for small
Companies to
go through. So I think the first, at least based on my experience, my recommendation would be first 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever, some small number of customers. It's better that the startup goes and gets on their own, delivers that, gets that experience. What does it take to sell? What does it take to deliver? What kind of pulls and pressures you have? The customer suddenly asks for some 3 additional features. You can do 2, but you can't do 3. So you have to go back and tell them, I can do this, I can't do that, and so on and so forth there. So get maybe a small critical mass of customers on your own, so that you understand how this whole process works. You understand real life customer, real life integration challenges, real life deployment challenges, and so on and so forth there. Then you'll be able to convince the SI, because you're in a way convincing somebody to give you business from somebody else. You're not directly appealing to the buyer, right? So therefore, the challenges you have to go through, the questions you'll get asked is even more difficult than dealing with the customer directly. And I think we spoke about this last time also. The most favorite example that I have is when you have a priest between the devotee and the deity. The priest also needs to be convinced to take your whatever proposal to the deity, right? So between the devotee and the deity, they can talk on their own. But if you have a priest in between, then the priest also needs to add his own value, and you need to convince the priest as well, which is what unfortunately or fortunately the partnerships will end up doing there. So you have to be prepared for a little bit of that long kind of a haul, and therefore if you already had that critical mass, if you already delivered, it gives the confidence to the SI partner that okay, this is a valuable company, this is, I can trust them, they've already proven themselves, etc., etc., and then therefore you'll be able to go through with them to the partner, with the partner to the customer. So first is, like I said, develop a certain set of right to win on your own before you go to the partners. So that's the first. Secondly, when you're dealing with enterprises, you have to have all the internal processes aligned. For example, today everybody will require like some kind of a cybersecurity certification, right? Like SAS 70 or ISO 27001, or whatever appropriate standard that is relevant for the industry or the geography that you're going after. Make sure that all of those I's or dotted, T's or crossed, etc. Otherwise, you'll end up realizing that this is a bottleneck later in the sales process. And then to scramble and get it done, you may not have time, you may not be ready, and so on and so forth. So there'll be common expectations in terms of certifications, etc., that you'll need to go through. So make sure that you have all of those as well. But finally, choose, like I said, going back to the point I made before, choose a client that you want to go after. You have to have some kind of, therefore, like I said, okay, in this industry, in this geography, these are the most, what shall I say, referenceable customers I'm going to have, etc. Then put some research to say who are the vendors empaneled already within those companies there, and then reach out to them saying that I know that you are already a partner to whatever so-and-so retailer or so-and-so manufacturing company or so-and-so bank in London. I have this solution. Can you help me take it to that solution there? Then you are also not trying to boil the ocean. Then you're going with a very targeted message to these companies, and then the SI will say, yes, it's possible, I'll do it because I'm interested, I think it's an opportunity, this in there. Or if they don't think it's a valuable thing for them, they'll say, sorry boss, I can't do it, please come back next year or whatever. They So you're at least not wasting time. So all the effort you can put in terms of front loading the investment from a research point of view, identifying customers, identifying the right partner, and so on and so forth, also is valuable to minimize the time that you will end up spending later on.
Okay, so it's a completely reverse
Correct.
way of the most of the time the entrepreneurs work. Normally go to the CEO, get them convinced, we get a PR released, but then after 6 months we don't see that things really don't
Exactly.
move on the ground.
Absolutely. So which is why therefore do it from the bottoms up, because the probability of success is still probably the same, but you will waste lesser energy. If it doesn't succeed, you will waste lesser time and lesser energy. Okay. So that's our experience.
So does it really make sense? Even for example, I've done all the hard work. This is a client and this one. So do I need to go to the? I think it's a very tactical question. Do I need to go to the AM who is managing it, account manager who is managing it, or still I go to the CEO, get his blessings in the company, or it really doesn't matter?
The most important person is the account manager of that account, because ultimately he is the or she is the gatekeeper to that account, right? To qualify you, to see whether you fit, to give you for example, you may want to do a POC, then the account manager has to enable that by giving you the data, by giving you the access, and so on and so forth there. So the account manager is critical. The support from the CEO, etc., is, again, like I said, to use a phrase that the industry uses quite often, like support from the CEO is necessary but not sufficient. The rubber meets the road movement is the account manager succeeding, thinking that they can succeed with your solution. So more valuable person in this is, at the starting point, is the account manager. If you get 5, 10, 15, whatever success stories there, then you go meet the CEO, get the press release, etc., because that can value add in other ways, right? Then you can showcase it. You can use it, for example, with VCs who want to get funding or so on and so forth there. So there is a merit in doing that, but I would recommend do that as a second step.
Got it. But there will be hundreds of account managers across, right? I mean, for example, I'm picking up a particular industry also, right? If I'm not going to the particular company, then yes, it boils down to one or two, a few people. But if I'm going as a industry approach or a little bit of a horizontal approach, reaching out to so many people also will be time consuming, and resource also will be exhausting. Is there any other shortcut, or there is no?
So true success is inevitable. I mean, is impossible without hard work. So nobody in this world has done anything great at any point in the history of humanity without putting in the hard work. So therefore, I haven't come across anything. You have a 1% chance that you could just be lucky, but the 99% or just the majority probability is no other shortcut to hard work. So again, if you were to go with my current experience, which is probably where I've most hands-on kind of data, is that there is, like I said, you pick a geography, whatever, I'm going into Europe and I'm targeting banks. Then you do your homework, because a lot of this information is available publicly. So you know what are the top 25 banks, top 50 banks, whatever that you're going after. If you don't want to go after the top 10 banks, then what are the 11th to the 20th bank? So you get all that data from the public domain there. And then again, public domain will tell you who are the partners empaneled with it. If you were to take the 11th largest bank in Europe, whatever that bank is, I'm sure there'll be at least 5 large SIs in that account. Because those companies are also not trusted one vendor with their entire portfolio, right? Then whatever, use tools like LinkedIn and multiple other sources to say who is working on the program or connected to those buyers in the area that you're interested in. And then maybe there'll be three out of the five vendors empaneled in that enterprise. Maybe three people are connected to your whatever your customer persona or your problem statement there. Then reach out to all three, because it's a question of whatever, sending an email or a LinkedIn message on whatever there. So do that whatever few hours worth of work to come to this conclusion. But then you're only doing 3 emails or 3 communications there, 3 LinkedIn requests, whatever. Spend a lot of time to craft that message in a very eye-catching, very punchy, very memorable. Because those guys also keep getting hundreds of emails from different people. So put in all that effort to crafting your message and identifying the right audience for it, and then somebody will click and then move. If that all that effort doesn't work, then go from the 21st bank to the 30th bank and repeat the whole thing all over again. I haven't come across anything that can give you a shortcut to this.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Shifting the gears, Rostow, right? Nowadays, there are a lot of GCCs are coming in into India. Then now there is a statistic saying that there are 1,800 GCCs in India, and the number is increasing every day, right? How do you see a system integrator's role is changing in this environment?
You are absolutely right. India has become a very hot target market for GCCs to come and set up capability centers in India. The breadth of the talent, the depth of technology, the kind of innovation that you have there. So if you see today, many large global corporations have tens of thousands of people in India across financial services, retail, manufacturing, healthcare. So all the large global verticals are present here, and they all have critical mass here. So if you are a SI, it's a little bit of a, what shall I say, double-edged sword. At one level, those guys can then take over the work from you. If you're a SI dealing with a large bank in the US, for example, the bank has set up a captive. So they have access to the same talent, they have access to the same cost structure, the economics, and many other things. So therefore, they could potentially take away the volume of work that was outsourced, potentially can be insourced and given to the captive there. So that's one threat. Second threat is then you're ending up having to deal with the managers and with the processes here in India with the GCC. In which case, for example, your billing rate may suffer or your growth may suffer, etc. Instead of dealing directly with the buyer, or your customer connects to the business users may suffer, because the people here may end up becoming more of the interface for you. So you may not end up dealing with the real business owners and their problems and so on and so forth. So it could be a downside in some ways. But it could also be an upside if the what shall I say, the situations are right. Because there's a GCC, for example, maybe there'll be more work that's currently being thought of sending to India, which previously they couldn't have. For example, if it's data to be shared, then many countries, for example, have regulations that prevent it. So instead of sending it to a third party, the work could come to a GCC, and you send your people to the GCC because then you're inside their network, you're accessing it as part of their teams, etc. So it could also be a growth opportunity depending on the circumstances of your case. So that's as far as the SIs go. But with the GCCs coming in, especially with some of the newer ones, some of the more cases where some of the GCs are really strategic, it's an enormously valuable opportunity of partnership for the startups. Because if you take an example like, say, Bosch has a very well established incubator accelerator kind of a program. So the Bosch India Center receives problem statements from Bosch units worldwide.
Okay.
And then they say, okay, I can solve this problem for you. Then they have a curated set of startups who are working in that area. They give them the data, they give them all the support to be able to prove their concept and so on and so forth. And if the startup is able to meet all the criteria that Bosch sets up in this example, then Bosch India will give them a purchase order, will give them the support, and do all the internal coordination within the Bosch world for the startup to be able to take the problem and solve it at scale with the speed that they are looking for, with all the quality and timeliness and all other criteria that you have. So some of these GCs have also become a very large supporter for the startup and the innovation ecosystem in India, because they have the resources, they have the internal knowledge, they have the access to the data. So you can also see this as a partnership opportunity for startups as well. Given all the advantages, I think GCC will definitely keep growing in India. The stable, legal framework, the strong talent base, the supportive government policies, all of which indicate that GCCs will continue to grow in India. So therefore, craft a partnership strategy that's unique for them. Some of these GCCs, like I said, based on my experience, places like say Walmart, places like Bosch, etc., are so involved in the most cutting edge future product development of the large, global corporation. So partnering with them will definitely be valuable.
Oh, superb, superb. So probably you even answered my next question, which I supposed to ask that. But one thing what I see is either with the SIs or even with the GCCs, it's a predominantly the tech work or extension of a tech or data. Okay. But for example, if I'm in the horizontal, like I'm sir, my product is serving a CMO or a CHRO or a CFO. Do you think that I can still partner either with the GCCs or with the SIs, or predominantly no, because SIs also primarily sell to the CIOs, right? Have you at least come across any kind of these kind of use cases, Rostow?
Definitely. So some of the large global corporations also spend a lot of money from a technology perspective for the CFO's office. Maybe they're rolling out a very large SAP program or consolidating multiple SAP instances into one, or so on and so forth. Or even for the CMO, maybe they're running a completely brand new CRM or a new marketing campaign kind of an initiative, etc. And it's therefore the technology spend is no longer limited to the CIO. In many cases, the CIO runs the quote unquote bread and butter kind of technology functions, but other groups within the enterprise are buying their own technology kind of decisions as well, making their own technology decisions as well. But if you partner with the right GCCs, as an example, they will have presence across all of these, because the GCC team in India is also what shall I say, motivated to expand their footprint within the global corporation, right? So if maybe they're only doing one kind of work right now, and just to make an example, maybe they're only doing SAP maintenance right now, but they want to partner with the CMO organization to set up a center or a team in India to solve the CMO's needs and so on and so forth. So they are naturally motivated to grow their own footprint, and therefore, if you have the right solution, you can partner with the GCC to be able to solve the problem there. So I think the fertility condition exists. But whether your seed will grow in it or not is a function of when that rubber meets the road. Do you meet the right people? Do you get the right chemistry match? Are they motivated to solve your challenges, etc., etc.? They enable to you to support, enable you to succeed in that environment. Is a function of that enterprise, that day, that whatever GCC manager, and who you meet, and how much are you able to convince that individual to come on your side of the table. That's all it matters. Similarly with the SIs as well. If you look at many of the well-run SIs have now established their footprint way beyond the CIO.
Okay.
So all the large, reputed, well-established SIs now have a connection into all the other groups with the organization as well. And they're considered, like I said, strategic vendors, support many large innovation kind of programs, not just the bread and butter IT kind of work, but also some of the front end digital analytics, cloud, those kind of components as well, business critical problems as well. So even the SIs can give you access to those for the decision makers.
Got it. Oh, definitely helpful.
The last, which I think is emerging as a really interesting opportunity there, is in the last few years, a whole bunch of startups have also come up solving the problem for the developers.
Okay.
So not just technology, either from a vertical or a horizontal solution, but even technology that can help developers become more productive. The most famous example is obviously Slack, right? So Slack never dealt with the big bosses in the organization, but it permeated across all the quote-unquote worker bees, and it reached a critical mass. Then obviously all the senior management also had to take responsibility for it. So whether it is coding, whether it is test cases, whether it's testing, test coverages, from developer productivity, more efficient coding, and so many aspects of the software engineering lifecycle as well. There are many startups focused on it. How do you spin up environments quickly? How do you and set up the backend configuration. So API managers, all of those things have also become very large business opportunities, and many startups are focusing on these kind of things as well. There, so that's another area where, for example, the GCCs, etc., can contribute. Could be an attractive partnership opportunity, customer opportunity for the startups who are focusing on that. Because if you are a GCC with whatever 50,000 people in India, of which let's assume 30,000 people are software programmers, you will need development practices. You will need, for example, testing practices, etc., to cover all the work that they do. So you could have like a captive sort of customer with like that many people doing that kind of work, and your tool productivity improvement, whatever, improved security, whatever you are offering for the developer could also be a really interesting business opportunity.
Oh, great, Rostow. Especially when it comes to this kind of horizontal offerings, CMO or CHRO or CFO, right? Normally the SI org structure is like, capabilities. Within capabilities, normally these may not come. Even the geography also doesn't cover, industry doesn't cover, right? Vertical. So as a product company, how do I really approach an SI when it say a customer persona which is slightly different? Is it again a bottom up, like, don't try to boil the ocean, go identify a particular product? Or if I say that, hey, I see that I have another 10 ton declines already, it is solving, I believe that I can go to a Fortune 2000 CMO, I have an offering which will. So in that case, how can I really approach?
Um, Again, like I said, no easy answer. If you can get to that access to that Fortune 2000 CMO, I think you should definitely give it a shot to go do this on your own, because the return on energy will definitely be higher with that. Challenge will be sometimes you may not get access to that CMO. You may write some 500 emails, that person may not even respond. It will get caught in their spam filter there, whatever, and you may not even be able to reach that person. Even if there's like a small probability you reach that person, the person may not take you seriously. There, then you have to go through multiple hoops to sort of get to that. So it's not likely that will be easy, but if you have the access, you should definitely try reaching out on the one. Again, going back to my example, if the devotee can pray directly to the deity, why do you need the priest in between? So the only issue is sometimes the devotee may not know exactly how to do this puja, what you have to do in the morning, what you have to do in the evening, what you can eat, what you can't eat, what dress you have to wear, what ingredients you need for the puja, etc. So therefore you may end up needing the priest because you don't know. But if you do know, then you may as well pray to the devotee can pray to the deity directly and cut out the priest in between. So if you can, applying the same logic to the context that we're speaking about, if the startup can access the large enterprise directly, I think you should definitely try. If it doesn't work for whatever reason, then you go back and try some of the partnership opportunities there. But again, coming back, many of the well-run SIs today definitely have access to multiple buyers in the organization. So they have actually grown beyond the CIO and start working with some of the other buyers as well in the organization, which is one, or shall I say, positive trend. The second positive trend is that CIOs of today are also much more business savvy, much more collaborative with multiple other buyers, etc., compared to say the CIOs of the 90s, of the 2000s, which were very traditional, very sort of technology oriented, very sort of quote unquote back office kind of a mentality was the perspective of CIOs in the past. But today, many CIOs are like very business savvy. They probably also have education from a sort of MBA or business kind of education perspective. They're very well regarded by their peers in the organization. So getting the buy-in of the CIO will also inevitably be an issue, because the CMO or the CFO or the CHRO, for example, will not sign off on a technology decision on their own. So suppose you're a CFO and suppose you're evaluating a new HRMS, and maybe you really like Workday, but you not sign off on that Workday purchase on your own, right? You will want your technology team members to get involved, study it. Maybe you've done all the business level kind of validation, but there's still a whole bunch of integration issues or cybersecurity issues or compatibility with your data and so on and so forth there. So inevitably the IT organization gets involved in technology decisions taken even by other groups in the organization. But overall, like I said, today's CIOs are also very forward looking, very strategic, very business oriented. So having the CIO in your corner always benefits.
Okay. Definitely. Thanks a lot, Rostow. I think we are coming to the end of the episode.
Thank you.
Thanks a million for your time and for the valuable inputs.
Most welcome. I'm really happy to be here. I hope the points are useful, and I hope it presented a alternate perspective to what people have already seen and experienced in their day-to-day life. Because at the end of the day, anything that any of us can share is still limited because they are the ones on the ground. Their context is unique, etc. So may the force be with all the entrepreneurs that are watching this session, and let's hope all of them succeed. Let 1,000 flowers bloom.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Rostow. I'm sure all of you are finding value from this podcast series. If you have any questions, interesting insights about SaaS SI partnership, please share it in the comment section below. We will answer back to your queries, or if it is a very interesting question, we will cover up in the upcoming podcast. Also, feel free to share this with your friends, and if you really liked it, then like or share and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.